The new Avatar movie has finally been released officially this time, and I can confidently say that it is the best thing we've gotten out of this franchise since the original show. Unfortunately, the bar was extremely low, but I really did enjoy this movie. It finally brings back some semblance of the characters we first met 20 years ago, and it also looks really freaking good. With all that being said though, it is far from perfect. The plot isn't great, the main villain is kinda weak, and the writing as a whole is still poop, but yes, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I can really appreciate it for what it is, which I cannot say about any of the remakes.
My name is Aang.
So let's start with the positives. The characters actually feel somewhat like the original characters, and the movie as a whole is much closer to the actual tone of Avatar than any of the remakes. It's serious, but still fun, lighthearted at times, and decently humorous. Sure, Sokka is dumbed down a bit to solely tell jokes, and Aang could have been a bit goofier instead of being all business, but even with their shortcomings, these characters are leagues ahead of the remakes. But the biggest praise I can give this movie is that it looks genuinely beautiful. It sort of carries the movie, but I'm not even complaining because it really carries the movie. All of the action is incredible, and there's this one part I can't stop going back to that isn't just animated perfectly, but it also just has so much aura. This could be considered a very minor spoiler, but it's when Katara literally parts the sea. If this was anybody else, I'd be a bit upset that they were hitting the same move as Moses, but it's Katara, so nah. Seriously, I don't think I'll ever be able to watch this scene without getting chills. But in regards to the whole movie, they nailed the cartoony anime aspect of it with the dramatic proportions and the visual effects and everything. The only complaint I have about this movie's visuals is that the characters are kinda just too perfect. They're all very chiseled and attractive and chatified, which is a term I saw on Twitter. Unfortunately though, it seems the amazing visuals left little budget left for the writers. Tagga isn't a bad character, but he certainly isn't fleshed out enough and fundamentally suffers from the new world building / lore of the golden age of airbenders. I think it's counterintuitive that so much of the new Avatar content, like Korra and this movie, try to add so much lore and build on a world that was already perfect. The line between the spirit world and physical world gets even more blurred with this movie, and it was already ruined after season 2 of Korra. Changing the spirit world so drastically from how it was in the original show was maybe the biggest mishandling of the Avatar world, and if you say that they didn't change it, they just added to it, then I'm going to punch you in the face. Anyway, back to Tagga. To put it simply, the lack of depth we get from his character makes him feel more just like the antagonist than an actual character. You could argue that Ozai was the same way, but the original show doesn't place emphasis on Ozai like this movie places emphasis on Tagga. The OG was about the characters, that's largely why it's so great, but this movie is more about the actual conflict, which is why Tagga, who is, one end of that conflict, should have been fleshed out more. With that being said, he's still a good character, but just good. And now to the writing as a whole. The plot is very basic and redoes a lot of things we've already seen. I really don't like the idea of non-benders being this oppressed group and some of them forming a resistance against benders. I didn't like it in Korra, and I don't like it here. In the OG show, benders and non-benders lived in peace, and there was no sign of non-benders ever being like this. Sure, it's realistic that this could happen, but it just doesn't feel like Avatar to me. It feels too much like our world and not like this awesome fantasy world. That might be a stupid complaint, but it's just how I feel. Anyway, something else they try to do again is bring back airbenders. I also don't like this, at least not the idea of bringing the air nomads and air nomad culture back. The end of the movie at least addresses this, as Aang realizes that his culture and his people are always with him, even if their time in the physical world is over. Except right after understanding this, he dresses people up in air nomad clothing and he calls them his air acolytes. What are we doing? That's not a huge deal though. The rest of the plot is very basic, predictable, and uninspired, kinda just stealing stuff from the original show. An airbender is frozen in ice. The airbenders of the past were attacked by the earthbenders. Why? Because the firebenders had already done it in the original show, so they used the earthbenders this time. There's also a lot of dumb little decisions that make no sense. Tagga's incredible power, and especially his little one-hit airbending move, is stupid and spits in the face of Avatar's previously perfect magic system and power scaling. The Avatar state being nerfed is stupid too, but I guess they already did that in Korra. It was previously a great narrative tool, but now the Avatar state just falls victim to wherever they want to go with the plot. All of the gang dying and being revived, also very stupid. Like, we already used the whole revival thing in the OG, and doing it here is not only stupid and unnecessary, but it diminishes the impact of Book 2's ending. Things aren't as cool when you do them multiple times. I don't know why they made Tagga's stupid move a one-shot instead of just being a big stun. There's also the airbender quote that they walk the world for a moment in time, then return to the eternal wind, which is kinda cool, except Tagga, the one who says that, his actions kinda contradict that quote entirely. Bro is nothing like an air nomad. Literally, because he was given airbending, which is another stupid thing. Giving and taking bending was never good writing, not even in the original show, but Korra still kept it going, which was terrible, and now this movie tries to do it too. Bending is portrayed as a part of the bender's identity, and it's perfect that way. That's why it never should have been written that bending can be given and taken away. This is gonna sound weird, but it's kinda like race. You can't take away someone's racial identity, and you can't give one to them that isn't theirs that they didn't have at birth. Going along with that strange analogy, that's also why air nomad culture will never come back. Trying to write the airbenders as we saw them in the OG show back into the Avatar world is never going to feel right. But enough of that negativity, let's end this on a more positive note. I think that the voice acting, even though I've seen a lot of people dogging on it, is not half bad. It's not amazing, but I thought it was pretty good. Obviously the voice actors don't capture the same essence of the original voice actors, but I thought they all did pretty good in their own respects. As a whole, the movie doesn't reach the cartoony, dramatic voice acting of the original, but hey, I can't dock it too much for not reaching the height of the greatest show and greatest piece of media of all time. I also really liked the Taika Waititi cameo. Overall, I'm very happy and honestly a bit surprised to say that I love this movie because even with its many flaws, it just has the sauce like that. Like I said, it is the second best part of the franchise behind the original show. It's still a bit far behind the original show, but it's still great. Even though the plot is mediocre at best, the characters are a breath of fresh air after what we've seen in the remakes, and the animation is some of the best I have ever seen. Nothing will ever top the original, but I thoroughly enjoyed this movie and I will be returning to it in the future, even if it's just because of the aura. Now, what I'm gonna say next might be a bit controversial considering the backlash I've seen online about this movie, but I can say that personally, I would not be too upset if the future of Avatar looks like this.